Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before starting the video, please subscribe and keep watching for more details videos. Coco Gauff gives her thoughts on the Canadian Open crowd and reveals the change they have made, which she really likes. Coco Gauff will be looking to bounce back at the Canadian Open after being shocked in the first round of Wimbledon. After defeating Aryna Sabalenka to win the French Open title, Gauff was stunned by Ukraine's Diana Yastremska, losing in straight sets. The loss formed part of an unusually high number of major exits during the first round of Wimbledon. A record 23 seeds exited in the first round of the men's and women's singles draws. Gauff will appear at her first tournament since Wimbledon when she plays at the Canadian Open this week. Ahead of her first match in Montreal, the two-time Grand Slam champion revealed a change to the tournament that she has enjoyed being a part of. Coco Gauff really likes the change from Toronto to Montreal. Speaking at the singles draw ceremony in Montreal, Canada, Gauff discussed her return to the tournament. The American said, "I am very happy to be back here in Montreal. I hope to have a good start to the hardcourt tour, since this will be my first tournament on this surface since last March. I have been thinking about returning to this tournament for a long time, so my wish is that things go well. I hope I can make it happen." Gauff was then asked why she has decided to return to the Canadian Open. She said, "One of the reasons is that it is a WTA 1000 and we are obliged to play them laughs. Now seriously, it's a big tournament, so I try not to miss any of these. Obviously, being American, I am very close to home. For me, it is a very simple, very friendly trip. I always enjoy it a lot here. The people are super affectionate. I also really like the change that takes place every summer between Toronto and Montreal. That makes you face the tournaments with a lot of freshness, as if everything were new." Who could Coco Gauff face first in Montreal? As the #1 seed in Montreal, Coco Gauff has received a bye through to the second round. This means the American could face one of two players. She could face Bulgaria's Victoria Tomova or compatriot Danielle Collins. Collins has enjoyed previous success on the big stage, having reached the 2022 Australian Open final. Gauff has played Tomova once, beating the Bulgarian in straight sets at the 2024 Wuhan Open. Gauff is yet to play Danielle Collins on the WTA Tour. Coco Gauff's Canadian revelation. The change I never knew I needed. Under the sun-drenched skies of Montreal, a sense of electricity buzzed in the air. The WTA Canadian Open was in full swing, and the sea of fans that flooded the IGA Stadium weren't just there for tennis. They were there for Coco Gauff. The 21-year-old American sensation, already a Grand Slam champion and a global icon, arrived in Canada carrying more than just her racket. She carried the weight of expectation, admiration, and a deep appreciation for a country that had slowly begun to reshape her view of the game itself. As she stepped onto the hard courts for her opening match, Coco took a moment to absorb it all. The cheers, the flags, the painted faces of young fans, and the unmistakable rhythm of the Canadian crowd. But something felt different this year. Something had changed. The subtle shift. In the post-match press conference after a dominant win, Coco Gauff smiled thoughtfully when a reporter asked, "Coco, the crowd seems to really love you here in Canada. What's your take on the vibe this year?" She leaned forward, elbows on the table, the sparkle in her eyes, telling a story far beyond the baseline. "I've always loved coming here," she began. "But I'll be honest, this year feels different in the best way. It's not just the energy. It's what the fans are bringing to the court. There's been a change, and I really like it." The press room fell quiet, leaning in. A few eyebrows lifted. What kind of change was she talking about? "A crowd that knows you." Coco explained. "You know, I think the Canadian crowd, they've leveled up. They're not just here to clap or cheer at the big points anymore. They're in it with us. They know the rallies. They understand momentum swings. They even call out encouragement in the right moments. Not just random 'let's go' chants." She grinned, adding with a laugh. "Someone in the second row today yelled, 'Watch the inside-out forehand, Coco.' And I was like, 'Wait, who's coaching me from the stands?'" Everyone laughed. But Coco's message was deeper. The shift wasn't just about noise, it was about connection. The evolution of the fan base. Canadian tennis fans have long been respected, polite, passionate, and respectful. But Coco noticed something new this time, an emotional intelligence in the way the crowd supported her, not just as an athlete, but as a human being. They've made the switch from being spectators to participants, she said. I felt it during my practice sessions too. Kids weren't just asking for autographs, they were asking about my mindset, how I handle stress on court, or what my warm-up playlist is. That kind of curiosity, it pushes you. She paused. And I think it pushes tennis forward. A personal impact. For Gauff, who has been in the public eye since her 15-year-old breakthrough at Wimbledon, dealing with crowds has always been part of the package. But Canada had always held a different, quieter space, until now. I used to think of the Canadian Open as a bit of a stopgap between big moments, like a warm-up for the US Open, she admitted. Now, it feels like a stage all on its own. These fans made me feel something I didn't expect to feel, like I'm being seen in 360 degrees, not just as a player. It wasn't about pressure. It was about presence. What changed? Asked what specifically the Canadian crowd had changed. Coco lit up. Well, first, she said, they've really embraced the younger generation of players. There's this awareness now that women's tennis is going through a massive shift, and Canadian fans seem to love that. They're not just showing up for the stars they know. They're investing emotionally in stories, in comebacks, in players who are still finding their footing. And second, she continued, they found a way to be loud and smart. That's rare. They're vocal in ways that fuel you, not distract you. I've had fans in other cities get too rowdy, cheering unforced errors, trying to throw players off. But here it's all love, pure energy, and I thrive in that. She paused, then added with a chuckle, also, they really love shoes. Sneakerheads and support. Coco revealed that the Canadian Open was one of the only places where she consistently spotted fans rocking her New Balance signature sneakers, not just young girls, but full-on adult sneakerheads. I had a guy come up to me in line for coffee this morning, she said, wearing my CG1S and telling me how he's been tracking every release since the first one. That stuff gets to me. It's bigger than tennis. Her voice turned tender. When I was a little girl, I dreamed of fans showing up to my matches wearing my shoes. Now it's happening, and Canada showed up hard this year. She paused, a little overwhelmed by her own words. That's the kind of change I never knew I needed. The soundtrack of support. Another fan-favorite moment came mid-match, when the Canadian DJ queued up a remix of Travis Scott and Beyoncé during a changeover, prompting Coco to start nodding her head and dancing in her seat. They even get the music right. She laughed. You wouldn't believe how much it helps when you hear a song that lifts your vibe when you're down a break. In a sport often dominated by silence and etiquette, Coco welcomed the culture Canada was cultivating. We don't have to lose tradition to build new excitement. And these fans, they found that sweet spot. Beyond the court, it wasn't just on court where Coco noticed a shift. At a youth clinic hosted by the WTA and Tennis Canada, Coco spent time with aspiring young athletes, and something clicked. I saw myself in them, she said softly. Not just the girls, but the boys too, wide-eyed, curious, asking about footwork, breathing, pressure. And it wasn't about fame. It was about craft. That tells me something is growing here. She described a girl named Amelie, who asked her what it felt like to fail in front of millions. I told her it feels awful. But that's why it feels amazing when you come back. An honest message to the fans. Before she left the press room, Coco took a moment to offer a direct message to the Canadian crowd. To every single person who's shown up this week, whether it was for me or any of the amazing players here, thank you. You've made a real impact. You've changed the way I see this tournament. You've made Montreal feel like home court. She smiled. And if you're the one who shouted about my inside-out forehand, meet me by the practice court. I might need you in my box at the US Open. Laughter erupted again. But beneath it all, there was something more profound taking shape. The bigger picture. Tennis is evolving. Stars like Coco Gauff are leading the charge not just with talent, but with voice, vulnerability, and vision. And fan bases like Canada's, thoughtful, passionate, and ever-curious, are proving they're ready to evolve too. What began as another tour stop has become something of a revelation for Coco. a reminder that the game isn't just played between the lines, but in the hearts that beat for it from the stands. And if this Canadian Open has taught her anything, it's this. Sometimes, the biggest changes don't come from strategy or technique. They come from the people who remind you why you fell in love with the game in the first place.